Alright, y'all, so we doing my digital journal part 34. So there's some interesting things that I learned. I was working on a project, and I want to tell y'all, there's some interesting things that it was like a town hall that was going on. And one of the biggest things I took away is they had somebody in a very, very high position giving a lot of these interns some game. And I wanted to share some of the game that I wrote down and I learned. Then I want to break down how I do a pros and cons sheet. I might do the pros and cons sheet on a different video, and then, so it'll go quick. But before we do that, I'm going to give a breakdown on some of the upcoming stuff. Now, I put all the Ed Pearson videos, pretty much 1 through 5, and then the food stamp video, which was kind of breaking down, a lot of my, I'll say, coming of age. So that would almost be like a quasi Ed Pearson extension. You see what I mean? And it's the Adventures of DP we're talking about. This is the playlist of how I came to be. And so there's a couple positions I've been posting as well. I posted the Vadnais Heights area where I was telling you when I was working out there in that warehouse. And there's been some channel, I can't remember what the channel was, but it's this sister that's breaking down all the remote positions and stuff like that. And in return, they're talking about, at several companies. I had a company that I got a homie at. He said they're doing return to office for everybody, and if they don't do it, they get canned. Next week, the place I'm at, they talking about mid-September, but you get 1 day to work remote. My position ain't so much as a remote position, so we'll cover that. Probably in a podcast form, or we might go ahead and just do it during a video with StreamYard, because I'm going to start doing some different things with StreamYard. I'm going to make a video pretty soon about Juneteenth, and I wish I had the audio, because I was at a company at one point in time, and they had some folks that don't come from our background at all telling us what they gave them. And this was a corporate environment talking about Juneteenth. And it doesn't represent Black Americans whatsoever, the way they were talking. They were talking like, oh, it's for everybody, and this is our culture. And you don't even come from that culture. The folks that were speaking on it, they have no relation whatsoever to the American South and what Juneteenth meant. The colors, everything. You getting these red, black, and green colors, those are not Juneteenth colors. That's something else. That's not the Juneteenth colors. That flag is red, white, and blue. That's not up for debate or dispute. So first of all, you got to be historically correct. So in this month, you're going to see a whole lot of flimflammery about people rewording it and retaking it. And I seen it for myself in a corporate environment. And they were like, oh, it's for everybody, and it's really just watering it down. And they never gave any context to it. They didn't mention the flag. If you're going to use the name and you're going to say something about it, you need to have a little bit of history on it. You don't just say anything. Because if I went to their countries and I started talking about their flag and where they come from, and I said, oh, it's just for everybody, it's just a this, it's just a that, they would check me on that. If I went to their homeland and said something crazy, they would check me. They would be like, hey man, this is our culture. This is Yoruba or whatever. They would check me, be like, hold on, dude. You don't get to come over here, and you don't get to remake and redesign what this means. They would give me a history lesson, and I would be reminded what my position is as a newcomer. I don't get to go over there or come into their community and tell them what their culture means. They're not going to allow that. They're going to check me quick. So we're going to have a breakdown of that. And there's been a lot of people using flyers, and they're real janky twerk flyers, and some there's one flyer that had a French word or said something crazy. It has absolutely nothing to do with Black American culture. Nothing. So we're gonna do a story time on that. We're gonna do analysis on that because that's important. We gotta gatekeep and start saying, hold on, wait a minute. No, that ain't it, bro. We gotta do that because otherwise, if you let people do that, they'll just say anything. So this is some of the advice that I got when I was watching this dude. Now, keep in mind, this dude handles billions of dollars. He knows what he's talking about. He had been in the game for a minute. So he basically was saying AI will commoditize capital. He said, but we don't know where things will go with AI. Now, this is a financial corp I'm talking about. The next thing he says is how to compete in chaos. The third thing I wrote down was be hypersensitive on how you spend your time. And I started kind of thinking about that goes along with people you associate with. Mindless, irrational, illogical babble and just doing things and saying things just for the sake of it. You got to be hypersensitive about that. Now, number 4 was the one I liked the most. He said the most powerful word in the English language is no. Willing to say no. It's not yes. The word no is the most powerful, and I agree with that. He said it's no. No is power. Yes is going along with whatever, but the more you say no to this record deal, no to this, whatever it is, no usually ends with stopping somebody in their tracks on something they're trying to do. He said it cuts a waste of time as well. The next one was what can you remove that's unnecessary? That goes back to the one I talked about, being number 3 with hypersensitive. What can you remove that's necessary? Are these people or these things in your life, are they necessary? The next thing he said is use your genius to simplify and keep it simple. He said people always make it complex to keep a job. Now, I've seen this, and you guys have seen this, where people will make things complex because it gives them more work. They'll have you run through the wagon and do all of this extra stuff because it keeps them relevant. The next thing he said is be bold. Speak up, don't be quiet, get involved. This channel is for the bold. I made this channel for people that are for the bold. I don't want people that's not bold to listen to me. Just don't even listen to this. Delete. This channel was for the bold. This is for the folks that's thinking and moving forward. And the next thing is, and this was the big one, choices in business and life must be finite and simple. So, especially as black men, we have to make decisions and choices. They got to be simple, and they need to be permanent. So the things you do and don't do, especially the things you do, you have to make a decision because it's going to affect other people around you. And that's where a lot of power comes. When you're able to affect other people around you. I don't really like spending too much time coming in contact with people with an empty cup mentality. If I'm talking to you, there's something I could do for you. If I can't do nothing for you, then there's no point. I'm not adding to the equation. And if I'm not adding to the equation, then by default, I'm taking from the equation. Some people may be like, well, I'm not doing nothing. So I'm not wrong. I'm not doing anything. You're not adding anything either. So if you're not adding anything, you're by default taking away from the ecosystem. You're literally taking away from the ecosystem just by not doing nothing. Well, I'm just sitting. I'm just not doing anything. Well, you're not doing. You're just it's just air. You're taking away from the oxygen. You're taking away from the ecosystem. So that's the things that I learned, and I took notes. I sat there and soaked up that game, sitting around some of those young folks. Those young folks that were in there, they got their life ahead of them. And when I was sitting there, just listening to them, they weren't a whole lot younger than me. There's people around my age too, but they were. I could see they were sharp, sharks in water. They were ready. You know, I only seen one brother when I was there. Uh, he was from um, he was from some other country or whatever like that. So they you know they had so you know I didn't really, they ain't had no black folks up in there like that. I just seen one out of all like 30 plus people, you know. So, but yeah, man. When I was kind of going through that, and I was like, man, that's some of that stuff, and you know, you're taking a grain of salt with what you hear from people. But when you're talking to somebody that runs $1 billion company, like, and after a while, he's like, all right, y'all. After these questions, I ain't got, you know, I got a 2 hour meeting. I ain't got time. Men of business talk like that. They ain't got time. They'll answer a couple of your questions. They'll give you the game, and then you take it and you run with it. And that's one good thing about if you're around a financial firm or whatever the case may be, you're gonna learn some game from some folks. If you come into a situation like that or a company like that and you don't learn nothing, the issue ain't with the company. The issue's you. You're the problem because you're around too many people that are involved in wealth. You should learn something. You should learn something every day. We are able to just take that and be like, all right, let me layer this into my life. You see what I'm saying? Let me layer this into my life where I can learn how to manage. You're supposed to be soaking up games so you can manage your own affairs. So, you know, I thought that was really interesting. So now we're going to do the video on pros and cons. If you're looking at different options and looking at different videos, or not videos, but different options, look at the pros and cons. So we're going to do a pros and cons.